Nice cool morning. Fall is arriving.
Oh, yeah.
What kind of question, what kind of feelings are you guys picking up as we await for the decision of the Attorney General on the Breonna Taylor case?
Hey, I think they'll be acquitted. I don't think that the city would have put up all the protection and all the gates and, the whole thing. My prayer is that we as a people just expect it and know that our power is in the vote.
Mm-hmm.
This is yet another opportunity for the reality of things. It's not going to get better. And we cannot go out and vote for, random names that are not on the ballot. We have to get out there and vote because this is our life.
Yeah.
And it won't get better. It won't get better. But I don't expect these guys. I expect that they're going to be acquitted.
Yeah. What are you picking up, Ricky?
I think that sorry about that. Yeah, I think that they won't let that go by. I think they're not gonna allow this to keep going on.
What do you mean allow what to keep going on? Which?
I think that about the incident about the that lady being killed. They're not gonna.
Okay. Hey, Nairobi.
Yes.
I see your name on the screen. Welcome.
Yeah. Because I didn't know if my name said iPhone or Nairobi to let you guys know I'm here.
Thank you. Saw that both. Yeah, your name is there. Can you turn on your camera so we can see you?
Yes.
There you
Hi,
go.
guys.
Hey. Good morning.
Good morning. I know I'm just now waking up.
That's all right. No, you're here right on target. Here comes take one.
Matt, get away from my beer. Wait.
Morning, Tay. Tay's muted.
Huh?
There you go.
Good morning.
Good morning, sir. Glad to see you. Turn on your camera if you had a chance. Not everybody likes to have their own picture, their own face on camera. I understand that. I'm just enough of an extrovert. I like to see everybody and be able to tell what's going on. That's just me. So I'm going to get started with class this morning. And the topic for this week is Indigenous religions of Africa, specifically pre-colonial Africa, which also means pre-transatlantic slave trade Africa.
They probably need fixing an alignment.
And on Monday, I don't know if anybody had a chance to look at that, I talked about the various empires of Africa and raised the question kind of against the general historical consensus is that Africa was an undeveloped, uncivilized continent before the Europeans found it and brought it into civilization. And I asked you to do a little research to see what you could find out about whether that is actually accurate. What did you find out? Did anybody have a chance to research something about the civilizations of early Africa?
No. Oh, go ahead.
I do know. I mean, I didn't do a lot of research. I do remember. Didn't it have like 3 empires in the early Africa? Ghana. Like Ghana is one.
Okay.
Other one is like it's Maya, spelled like M-A-H-I.
M-A-L-I, Mali?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's one.
And it's son.
Yeah, you can do that or leave it. Right.
I'm trying to remember how to spell that. Is it son?
Leave it. Right. Let that safe place in the house.
Donna.
I'm not sure what you're getting at. Yeah, but yeah.
They can spell S-O-N-G. I can't get it out.
That's all right. I don't recognize that one, but there were probably lots and lots of them that didn't necessarily get talked about it where I looked. What did you come up with, Paulette?
Well, actually, I made a note to have this prepared. I selected Kingdom of Congo, and I guess I got engulfed with just homework period and didn't get to this. So I'm hopeful that I'll have opportunity to still do the research and then present it at another class. My apologies. This week it got a little hectic for me, and as much as I wrote down my notes, what's due for Wednesday, I did not get back to it.
Okay. All right. Good morning, Kia. Glad to see you.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning, Kia.
Anybody else got any research done about the civilizations of Africa? Well, I knew it was a long shot, but I thought I'd try it. It's an interesting, I think it's an interesting question. It's a lot of problems with the question too. And the question
Yes.
is, were the people who were kidnapped and sold into slavery and brought across the across the Atlantic for the purposes of chattel slavery, were they brute savages, uncivilized, pagans, unreligious? Oh my gosh, they couldn't read English, so they, what did they know?
Right.
Or worse, at least a good chance some of them come from actually civilized empires and countries and places where there was a government and there were urban areas and there was art, and we know there was African art where there was writing and literature and
Yes.
religion and all a developed, a commonality of a particular group of people.
Yes.
Um,
Yes.
Not widely
Yes.
known, but maybe you all have run into some of that in some of your other classes.
Yes, yes, I definitely am. This is very interesting. I'm very disappointed in myself that I did not get back to the page I wrote all my notes on. But nonetheless, it's implied that they were not civilized, but they had their own civilizations in many of the countries. But I still, like I said, wanted to do just for my own knowledge and then for the class as well, to do the research on the Kingdom of Congo to get the specifics. But yes, it just in some of the other studies that I've had, some of the readings, personal readings, and just general knowledge that a lot of these countries, yes, they did have their own language, they have their own beliefs, they have their own everything. But to say that if they were civilized or primitive, well, of course, a European said, you're not civilized, so we're going to go ahead and train you how to do things proper, which proper was their way and not.
Right.
So, and as it turns and as history shows, they really took all the good that those countries had to offer and put another label on it and said that it was theirs. So, yeah. But I still, I'm gonna do my research.
Well, I think it'll be good for you to do that research.
Yes,
And
yes.
it'll come back after the 2 weeks from now. We'll be talking about Black religion in America, and there'll be echoes of that in what we're talking about then as well.
Yes.
This is kind of a pre-history kind of a piece of that kind of thing. What we're dealing with. Yeah. Anybody else have some comments about this topic of civilized or primitive?
I didn't.
Yes, sir.
I didn't do research. I was reading. I was reading the textbook. Stand Your Ground.
Yes, sir.
I was focusing on those chapters at the moment, reading up the Black religion.
Right.
I didn't get to do much research on civilization yet.
Okay. Well, and that's the topic I mainly want to bring up today is to talk about.
But I did remember.
Go ahead.
There were 3 empires I remember, but it was in Black African history.
Mm-hmm.
That it touch up on the civilization. I know one of us Maui, and the other one's Ghana.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm trying to remember the third one. I remember there was like the largest empire in Africa.
Yeah.
They're like the size of United States.
Yeah. Africa, of course, is a huge continent, and you can put 2 or 3 United States maps on that whole continent. It's just lots of different people and lots of different cultures, and yeah. The problem with my question is, the notion of civilization has been so defined by Europeans,
Right.
that it's very difficult to get a neutral or a neutral definition of it that doesn't impose the
Right.
European ideas about what is a civilization.
Yes.
So it has issues about it, and I just wanted to let you be aware is it's not a simple, yeah, it's an either or kind of a question.
Right.
So that's the background of what I thought put in context the question of, so what were the religious ideas of God that were around in Africa in those pre-colonial times? Well, the question of history and dates. When did the colonial powers invade and capture and, and colonialize Africa? About what period of history? So here's an easy way to start thinking about it. When did Columbus sail from Portugal to the Western Hemisphere? Anybody remember that date or
Would that be around the 1700s?
no, earlier than that? It's interesting. I learned as a kid
16.
earlier
I'm
than that.
sorry.
I learned as a
Okay,
kid.
yeah, 1400,
Yeah.
1451. Yeah, okay, 1400.
Uh,
And it's funny that this sort of came up in my music class yesterday, talking about when blues came about, and it was through this whole process.
yeah.
And 1400 was the year that stuck out in my head.
No, that's right.
So I just confirmed it that yes, it is.
Right. So yeah, Columbus came to, and his ships came to the Western Hemisphere. But before that, the Portuguese uh, invaded, basically, quote, discovered Africa.
Yeah,
They were looking for
invaded.
land to expand into, natural resources they could exploit, and people they could capture and take into slavery. Um, and they managed that very nicely. And in the process, they brought European culture so that these people could become good civilized people. And they also brought Christian missionaries. So these people who were unsaved, didn't
Right.
know Jesus Christ, could be saved. The ugliest piece of that history is they justified taking people slaves that they could make them Christian and it would save their souls. And that's the kind of rotten European way of looking at things from a Christian perspective.
Yes.
So around that time, that's before that 1400s, that's the time. That was the time of the height of European culture and civilization. Nation states were coming into power. There were great buildings, there were great cities, there were great um, uh, monetary things going on. They built great ships they could go conquer. They had weapons. That was civilization, and that's what they wanted to bring to other areas. That's not what they brought, of course, as you know from their history. So, before the Christian missionaries came and tried to persuade Africans that Jesus was the only way to be in a right relationship with God, what did some of these people in different parts of Africa believe about God? What were their ideas about God? And this is where we get into the textbook, Stand Your Ground, and that's section we read for this week.
Your idea of God, would it be freedom.
Yeah, that's the thing that Kelly Brown Douglas is big on. God is free, which is a pretty interesting thing to put with that. What does that mean? What does that mean for God to be free?
It's available to everyone.
Okay.
I don't have my book yet. My book will be here on the 27th.
Oh, okay, sorry about that. I did put a copy of that in the library on reserve if somebody wants to go read it.
Well, I went to the library yesterday and they said that the one copy that they had was out
Oh,
and had been out since May, and they were going to try to track it down. So somebody got it, I guess. But I went
okay.
ahead and ordered it.
Well, I left it there on Friday on the reserve desk, not to be taken out of the library.
Oh.
So whoever you talked to didn't know that. I'm so sorry.
Oh, okay. No, that's quite all right. They were very helpful. I know that.
Anyway, so yeah, Kelly Brown Douglas says that God is free. How does that play out as a way of understanding God?
Say that nobody should be enslaved.
Yeah.
And
People should be free too then. Yeah.
Yes.
So God, this free God is considered a creator, right?
Mm-hmm.
And she used a big fancy Latin word for the way that was understood as God creating the world. Remember what that one was? This is not a trick question. It's in there, but it's I'm not catching what you're saying. Say again. So this comes up a lot. We've already seen it in terms of early Christianity. Nihilo. Creatio ex nihilo.
yeah.
Anybody gonna know what that translates into? Mentioned it the other day, last week, I think, too. Creatio, just like the English word, right? Creation.
So it's creator.
It's creation, ex meaning out of.
Does it mean like out of nothing?
That's it. Yeah, right. So she's saying that the African notion of God is very similar to the Christian idea of God, which was when God created the world, God didn't use any stuff that was already there. God was completely free to create it, poof, out of nothing. God spoke, as the Genesis story says, and there it was. That's a piece of what she says is God's freedom, because God doesn't depend on anything or anybody else.
That's right.
So hang on to that. That'll come back that's likely to come back in the quiz. So God is the creator who created everything out of nothing, is completely free. How is that different? Well, she's suggesting that that's different than the European white people's idea of God? How's that different? This is a tricky-
In some narratives, you have to give something to get. It's based on how good you are. It's based on how much work you do or how much money you pay.
Mhm.
That sets you at a, in some narratives, it sets you at a closer position with God because you go to church every week and you sing in the choir and you pay the highest tithe and you cut the grass and
Okay.
all those things. But you can do nothing to get his love because it's there, it's free.
Can't be earned. It's free. Got it.
Right. Yeah, can't be earned. Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
All right. But in what way is the European idea of God that God's own self is not free? That's part of what she's implying.
Did you repeat that again? I'm sorry. I didn't quite get what you said.
She's implying anyway, and I think she says the European idea of God, in contrast to the African, that God is not free.
Okay.
What's that about? How is the white people's idea of God not free in the same way as the notion of the African God that just does whatever God chooses to do and makes people also to be free? And how's that different? This gets into a very particular idea of God.
How's not free?
Is what?
No, I'm trying to think about the question.
Yeah.
Um,
Now, how is God not free in the white people's idea?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure.
Is it maybe like, I don't know really, but
That's
is
right.
it maybe like their idea is thinking like they really don't have to work for it, like it's just given to them, maybe?
Well, now you're talking about what humans have to do. This is an idea about what God's own self is like.
Or what God is like.
Yeah, the idea of God is less free in the white people's beliefs than in
So would it be exclusive for them? Is it free to them and maybe not to others?
Well, that's good. I hadn't thought about that. Yeah, God.
Oh, okay.
That's good.
I was really trying to,
That's good. You're
grasp. Okay.
Yeah, you're thinking. And so if God is just my God,
Right.
then God is not free to be your God.
Free to, yes.
Yeah, that's a good possibility.
Okay.
The other thing I was thinking about, rather than just judging, is that God is boxed in by our doctrines, the things we have decided this is the official way of understanding God. And if you don't buy this particular understanding of God, like the perfect Trinity and omniscient, omnipresent, and so forth, and created out of nothing, all of these doctrines, if you don't believe that, then you don't believe in God. But then that means God's not free to be a mystery.
He is to whoever.
To be completely different.
Yeah.
Which the whole notion of the transcendent, which I think is more suggested in the indigenous religions of Africa, is God is so great and so mysterious that you can't tie down God to this particular set of beliefs.
Right.
Doesn't work.
Right.
So God is freer in that sense.
Okay.
We can't, and then we can't, sort of what you were getting at, Paulette, we can't bargain God into doing what we want.
Right.
Which, if we pray hard enough, No, sorry, God will do what God does in God's wisdom.
Yeah, that's his
Is
will.
another idea. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, no, that's one of the pieces of this idea of the African religion. So then the other piece that you mentioned earlier that is that means that people are meant to be free, not to be slaves. What's the idea that makes that possible? That you know that people are meant to be free. What notion of God and God, the way God created makes that possible?
Because we were created in his image.
Yes, yes, in the image of God, which is another way of saying that all creation is sacred or holy. That's another piece of the African religion that Kelly Brown Douglas talks about. Everything God made, because God made it, is sacred. The earth and all of the things in the earth and the air and the ground and the minerals and the people and the animals all are part of God's wonderful, beautiful creation, sacred. And to misuse any of that, to take away any of its freedom, is to deny its image of God or its sacredness.
Yes.
Yeah. Um, and so, yes, when and how does, yeah. So how does that notion of moving fairly quickly here, how does that notion of a God who's completely free, creating people who are holy, sacred, precious, individual creations, how does that translate to the way people who were introduced into America and into a life of terrible chattel slavery? How did they carry that into their lives? How did they?
Are you saying how did the slaves carry this in their lives?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay. Okay. They,
Maybe like the. Oh, I'm sorry.
no,
Go
go
ahead.
ahead. Go ahead, Kia.
I was just gonna say maybe like the hope, or the faith to be free.
Yeah. Yeah. No matter what somebody tells you.
Right. That's what I was going to say.
Yeah. So go ahead, say that from your way, Paulette. What were you going to say?
Well, in the memory, it goes back to, and it's funny, all of my classes are so aligned, but even in the music, they held on to their memory.
Yes.
No matter what the trauma they went through on the ship coming over, they held on to their religion. They held on to their power in their memory.
Mm-hmm.
So that was the music portion, but I believe that it's across the board. It fits.
Mm-hmm.
That no matter what you say, I know that God's coming. I know that Jesus is, or whatever that entity is for them.
Mm-hmm.
I know I said Jesus because that's where I sit, but
right. That's what we've learned about religion. So that's a good point. Let's take it one step further. If were there any other gods, big creator, sky god, who's free in African religion? Were there other gods in African religion?
yes.
What do we know about that?
Yes, there were. I learned specifically 3 or 4 different creation narratives
Yeah.
based on the area in Africa. They were similar, though. They were very similar. It seemed that there was definitely a creator.
Mm-hmm.
Things made from nothing or dust or a rock or whatever the case may be, but it was something small that was made big. And then there seemed to be an intercessor. There always seemed to have been some type of an intercessor. There was one where it was more spirits. And I'd have to pull out my notebooks, which I probably should.
That's right. We're thinking about it. That's
And
right.
yeah, yeah.
So why did they need an intercessor between themselves and the high God?
Would it, and I'm guessing that God is so awesome. We, in our filth, not clean enough to go to him directly. So, and then that's my Jesus narrative.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But there were several that was similar to that. It's like, we can't see his face. We can't look. But I can't say specific.
Yeah, no, you're really onto a piece that's stuff I've read about as well. I'm not really
Okay.
well versed in this.
Okay.
Anybody else have thoughts about this? How this works with the other gods and an intercessor God and
I was gonna say the same thing. Oh, I'm sorry.
go ahead.
I was
Yeah.
gonna say the same thing as around like what Miss Pauletta was saying, like that maybe they felt like that we just weren't worthy enough to go to him directly because we did have so much, I guess, sin or something. You know.
Well, yeah. So certainly there's the difference between humans and God. One of the myths that I read about said that at the beginning of creation, God was this great sky God was very closely involved with human life, and God was just too much for them. They couldn't handle this immense power and glory of God. So God, the sky God, withdrew and created other gods to be the way stations into connecting with God. That's just one of the stories that comes out of earlier Africa. Yeah. And as Paulette noted, that's very similar to many Christian ideas of Jesus.
Mhm.
The early Christians had to struggle with the same kind of question. Well, if God's God, and here's Jesus who came and transformed people's lives by the way he lived and way he died and rose again, what's his role in this God thing? Is Jesus a God or is Jesus a lesser God? And that was sort of Arius's perspective when we talked about early Christianity. Jesus was God, but wasn't exactly the same as God. And so Jesus has become a kind of intercessor. Roman Catholics have lots of saints, Roman Catholic Christians, lots of saints, and those are also intercessors with God and the Virgin Mary. So all of those ideas have been around in religions in Africa and Asia and in Europe and America for a long, long time. One of the things we're seeing, as I'm thinking about it now, we're seeing similarities in ideas of God, even though they don't sound alike, and even though they don't fit particular doctrines, Christian doctrines, there's a lot of spiritual and intellectual similarities between these various religions. Yeah. So one of the people I have studied quite a lot, Howard Thurman. I don't know if you all have heard of the name Howard Thurman, great mystic and prophet of the 20th century. I actually got a chance to study for him 1 year here at Louisville Presbyterian Seminary when I was in seminary way back in the last century. He's written a lot of things, but in his memoirs, they tell about his life. He talked about his grandmother, who was a major influence in his life, intellectually and spiritually. And she would tell she had been enslaved, and she remembered and told him stories about her life in that way of being. And she remembered that there was an old black preacher who was allowed to come around to the various plantations and preach the Christian message to the slaves. And the preacher was constrained to say the right things from the white people's religion perspective and encourage folks to be obedient slaves and all that stuff. But this preacher always ended his sermons with these words, and his grandmother would tell the kid this. He would say, and remember, you are not niggers, you are not slaves, you are children of God. And Thurman says, my grandmother always sat up just a little taller as she told us the story.
Mhm.
This whole notion that your life is sacred,
Mhm.
your life is made by God, and nobody can take that away. And that's, I think, a direct carryover from African religion that didn't get translated into white people's religion. So that's a story that I connect with this whole business as well.
Well, that tapped my emotion because I'm holding back tears right now.
Oh, it's a beautiful story. Yeah.
It
It
is.
actually,
It
it
is.
actually, it actually said that in that textbook, your ground
Yeah.
on that page that you have us to read. It actually said that what you just explained.
Did she tell that story? I've forgotten. Yes, she did. You're right. Yeah. 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 Good. Um, the piece that then Thurman talks about in his book Jesus and the Disinherited is that the way you have to live. He was writing in the 1940s, this little book, and he's saying that the black person has to live in a society where his or her life is not valued, is constantly put down, endangered. Um, and then he draws from the religion of Jesus, who also was living in a time when, as a Jew in a Roman society, the Jews were the underclass, had no freedoms and no opportunities. And Thurman says Jesus' genius was to say to people, the kingdom of God is within you. You are sacred. And the only way you can survive in this kind of an empire is to hold on to your own personal integrity. You have to be the best you that God has made you to be. And that translates nicely for a white man as well as for black folks, of course. But that's the way I think this kind of comes down for how to hang on to some of this kind of religious ideas of God that have real implications for the daily life of how do people live today. Now, I've talked a lot. Comments, thoughts, questions? We could have an argument about this. I could be wrong about this too. Talk to me. So Tay, do you have any thoughts about that? I haven't heard from you yet.
No.
That's an easy answer.
But honest.
Yeah. How about Tasia? How are you doing over there? What are you thinking?
What is now? Got a question.
Yes, sir.
What is the term uh I heard it on the last book, but I can't remember what that term really means. It's actually, I think, hold up. Okay, is it Saxon?
Anglo-Saxon?
Anglo-Saxon.
I think is uh, pronounced.
You're breaking up a little bit. No, now I think I've lost him. Yeah, Douglas does talk about the Anglo-Saxon religion. We're going to talk about that more in a couple of weeks. You back, Ricky? Maybe not, maybe so. The joys of Zoom teaching, learning. I'd much rather be sitting around a table with you guys.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
But at least we get to do this. Ricky, are you back?
Yeah, I'm here. I don't know what happened.
Yeah, I just lost you in the middle of it. Were you getting it? Excuse me. Asking about the term Anglo-Saxon?
Yes.
Okay. Yes. The Kelly Brown Douglas talks about the Anglo-Saxons, and we're going to study that more in a couple of weeks. Basically, that's the white Protestants in America. Claim they are descendants from the Anglo-Saxon English people who came to this country. And they were the Puritans and they were the Pilgrims. And her claim is, makes a lot of sense to me, but her claim is their vision of what America should be included the pure white race. And this is the country for the white people to be in charge. That was her notion of what the Anglo-Saxon, the myth or the vision is. So we're going to study some more about that, but that's a way of talking about the white supremacist view of America. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I was curious about that.
For a long time, there was the people were referred to as WASPs, White Anglo-Saxon Protestants. And now we're mostly talking about evangelical Protestant white folks who are tied back in with white supremacy and nationalism and confusing a whole lot of stuff. And in Kelly Brown Douglas notion, they're dealing with a God who's not free. God has to be the way they say God is. Otherwise, it ain't God.
Right.
And I think God laughs.
Yeah.
Or goes,
Yeah.
We'll talk about that some more. I've got a whole week that we'll talk about white Protestant Christianity and compare that with black Christianity. And the question is that the same God?
Okay.
Right.
That's the question we'll look at.
Right.
And as Louisville gets ready to burst into some kind of reaction again to the Attorney General's decisions, we'll have to ask that question all over again here in Louisville.
Yeah, for sure. And I know you asked us what our thoughts were on the whole verdict and this and that. Dr. Sawyer, what would your thoughts be on that?
What do you think?
I'll tell you what I think.
Well, we talked about it, and I personally felt like, and I say that they will be acquitted.
Mhm.
And my reasoning for saying that, first of all, is that they have locked the city down for riots. They've locked the city down for the response of a no.
Right.
That's
Yes,
what I
yes.
think, but I'm just curious what Dr. Sawyer thought about that.
Who else was trying to get in that conversation? Was that Tay?
I was Dr. Sawyer. I'm sorry.
Oh,
I haven't.
Go ahead.
I'm
Go
sorry.
ahead.
It's Deja. How you doing this
oh, hey,
morning? I'm
Dave.
sorry about that.
Good to hear your
How
voice.
you doing, Miss Pauletta? Good to hear
Yeah,
you
you're
guys
good.
too.
You're
What are you
good.
thinking, Deja?
I thought the same thing that Miss Pauletta said. Like why why else would you lock down a city,
Mhm.
Yes.
or like
Like a
and
war
prepare
zone.
for a verdict? Yeah, like prepare for a verdict that if they knew the verdict was going to be yes, would they have locked it down?
Mm-mm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, so I feel like they don't want the looters or stuff like that. They really don't want anything to mess around with, of course, the courthouse, because if you notice, it's the main buildings that have the higher power of say so or jurisdiction or anything
Right.
that is being guarded downtown. And then of course officers are not allowed to be off duty. It's about to be a no. A
Absolutely.
hard no, yeah, a strong no, and it's gonna break a lot of hearts all over the world, not just here, but all over the world. So I guess they're trying to prepare for, you know, destruction.
Yeah.
My
Yeah.
prayer is that the destruction doesn't go forth. My
Yes,
prayer is that we know and understand that this is just the world that we live in and that we still have some work to do. We
yes,
have to go to the polls. We have to vote.
yes, yes,
And I believe God is in it. I see God in everything. I choose to.
yes,
And I do believe he said, okay, y'all can keep playing around. You can keep acting like it's not important. You can keep
yeah,
thinking that your life don't matter.
right.
But your life matters when you pick up that pen and you fill in that little bitty dot on that ballot.
Yeah.
hmm
Yes.
Do you all think that like how they had like I was thinking there are professional looters, there are professional, there are people
Yeah.
that have been, looting and stuff for years. But do you think, like, I feel like with them dragging out the time, it's giving people time to be able to get here, to be able to be destructive if they wanted to. But I'm praying,
Yes. Yes.
I'm
Amen.
praying that we're able to conduct ourselves like, I'm not going to say normal, I'm going to say peaceful,
Amen.
peaceful human beings. And then I was thinking, with this class makes me think of, you remember back in the day when everybody was stuck on WWJD?
Yes.
Yeah.
I feel like a
Yes.
lot, like if people stopped and really thought about that, even, like even with the with the verdict, like even like what would Jesus do in certain situations? I feel like a lot of situations wouldn't be as bad as they
That's
were.
right.
But then
That's
again, it
true.
leads back to what do people think, or how do people feel about Jesus, or
Right.
what they think about
Yes.
Jesus, and
Right.
who does it refer to? You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And
Yes.
it's overwhelming, and
It's loaded.
it's a high spirit, and I just prayed, like, I know we have a long way to go still, because things are still happening, but like I just hope she does get justice. I'm praying for justice for her, and if even if not justice, everybody still be able to keep their names alive and keep it in perspective for people, to at least it brought awareness. You know what I mean? Big
Oh,
awareness to
yes.
what was going on before
Yeah.
the phones, before people were able to record. And
Yes.
a lot of what this country needs is prayer. Like,
Yes.
prayer really does help. It's really a
Yes.
meditation that if people allow it to take over their mind, body, and souls, we wouldn't have as many racial issues as
That's
we
right.
do today. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Like, because we're destroying ourselves. Like, it doesn't even, you know, like I want to say it does matter the color, because, you know, we get it the worst, but we're really destroying ourselves. We're looking at each other like we're looking at God at every face that we look into. You know what I mean? If we were all created
Should
in His
be.
image, you know what I mean? I pray that people would look at other people like, hey, you know, I'm looking at a reflection of myself when you're looking at people. But
Yeah.
yeah, I'm just praying, and you
That's
know,
good. That's good. Yeah.
but this class opens you up to learn about, you know, how other people, what other people believe in, and how they pray, and how. But to me, when I read it, it seems like we're all really praying to the same person. We're praying to the same man. It's just different, you know, or different statute, you know, that, you know.
Different images anyway. Yeah.
Different.
Yes, yes, yes.
And
Different
there's a
images.
question. We'll have it keep coming back to the question is whether that really is the same God or not.
Yeah.
But there's a whole lot of similarity in human life. That's for sure. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The same God.
Well, you asking me as well. Thank you for asking. I believe that most of the demonstrations we've had here in Louisville since March, after March and April, have been very peaceful.
Yes.
And I think those folks that are doing that are going to keep that up as a
Yeah.
constant pressure. If this verdict doesn't come down the way we want it to come, and then I think a good chance you're right. But then we got to keep the pressure on the city council and the mayor have really said we've got to do things different. Let's keep the pressure on them to do things different. And there's a whole list of stuff that council said you got to do to the mayor. Whether that'll happen or not, only if the pressure stays on them.
Yes.
The mayor has been a good mayor up to this point. He's really screwed up this whole Breonna Taylor thing badly.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
But the council is holding into account, and the vote is very important. I hope you all are registered to vote and will vote.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's very important. Very important. And the city did have to pay $12 million to Breonna Taylor's family. That's a piece of justice.
Yeah.
And I think
but for me, that was almost a smack in the face.
How's that? Tell me what it.
Because they put it out to appease. It's like, we're going to give you this money and this is it. So see, when that came out, that's when I knew that they're not going to, because the money is good. The money is good. And then it started another controversy. They was just in it for the money. No, we still want justice.
Yeah.
We want equality. So don't throw money to me. I need those officers held accountable.
Right.
You know, yesterday my daughter was coming back from, she lives in Lexington, and, you know, she's doing her master's. She's applied for medical school, and she got a little stressed out, you know. So she came home. She's like, I'm tired. I just want to, and it hit me instantly. I was on the golf course and I didn't have my phone. And I was like, oh, what if she gets pulled over? I mean, the fear as a parent, every time you walk out of your door. And see, for me, the verdict tells these supremacist people that they could come up to me and shoot me in my head, and there's no accountability. I could be a Kroger. We have no protection. So that money is a smack in the face. That's how that for me.
It's like hush money.
It's hush money.
It is.
They deserve it. They deserve it. They deserve to. They'd never get their daughter back, their mom back, their sister back. But that is a piece of justice. But that's not the justice for the people.
That's just a little teeny piece of it.
This is a teeny piece. It's a teeny piece.
The accountability, that word, like,
whoo,
that word accountability is the biggest word. Like, I feel like if the law or the government, if they hold us, like if we are held accountable for issues, it should be the same as for people that work for the government or the city. Like everybody should be held accountable, and that's where the pressure has to be like applied on accountability. You got to be held accountable for mistakes, and I just feel like if the police force was trained like the military, if they were trained like the military to not just shoot just because of laziness or just to shoot because of fear or shoot because of a stereotypical situation, then there would be less, police brutalities. And I feel like a lot of officers are not trained properly to be in the force. They're not like given the correct assessments to even see if they're mentally stable to even be a part of the force, and that plays
But
a major
what
part.
if the force is training you with blackface targets to shoot in the training? So it's
Yeah.
not,
Yeah,
it comes from high up.
It's built in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's built in. It's like you have the authority to do this. You're okay. Don't worry about it. We got your back. Go ahead and kill them.
Yeah, the whole culture and the rules, there's a whole set of rules giving police total immunity to do
Amen.
whatever they choose to do.
Whatever they choose.
Because they feel
And-
threatened, because they are in charge, because they are,
Yeah. And there is a law on that book that's going to make these officers walk. They're going to walk.
It's
There's
all,
no doubt.
it's all built in.
It's
at the
built
moment.
in.
So that's what's got to change, is that the culture of the police force.
Amen.
And it's unjust.
It is. It's just
So
like
they'll probably
who
walk, but maybe that'll create the next pressure to put on is to say that's got to change. The
Yes.
whole culture of policing,
Yes.
after the stuff about just abolishing the police forces may be a bit extreme, but the idea is we got to completely refurbish that mentality.
Refurbish it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was yet another scare tactic, or it was so extreme to even say that. Like, no, we're not saying demolish the police force, but realign it, start over, fresh.
Yeah.
And
I feel like too, as well, I do feel like the officers should be held accountable. But I feel like too, like, just at any other job, someone told them, I feel like the judge should be held accountable that issued the no-knock warrant.
Yeah.
And I feel like whoever those officers boss that told them to go do that. I mean, like, because we was talking about it at work, and luckily, like, I work with a group of people, like, we're not all black. We all of us don't vote. We're not all Democrat, but we all, have a respect for each other's opinion. And, it was brought up that, like, yeah, the officers should be charged. I mean, they definitely should be held accountable. But just like at a job, like, it goes down from different people. And so, like, I feel like the judge and the officer's boss or whatever who told them to go issue that, who told them to go to her house to do that, even knowing that the suspect was already in jail, like, I don't feel like they're getting enough, scrutiny as well. And I feel like they should all be held accountable, and not just the officers.
Yeah, from the inside out. That's right, from the inside out. But those officers, they did not have to go in there and shoot up like that. They didn't.
No.
They
and
didn't.
like,
They didn't. They made a conscious
they
decision.
didn't even announce it.
Right. They made a conscious decision that we are going to do this because we know we're fine. They could have went in there without even using a gun.
Yeah.
Except for when, maybe somebody shot out at them and then, okay, you retaliate. But come on, it's so extreme. But you're absolutely right. And that's basically what we were saying. It's coming from the top. And the top has to be dealt with, and then it trickles down. But, just like in your job, if your supervisor doesn't have your back,
then
then
you
you
trouble.
lose. Yeah, then you
Absolutely.
lose.
Yeah.
It's just horrible. But they
We
have
need
each
to
other's back, and that's the problem.
Yeah, they need to have us sitting in the jurisdiction.
Yeah, they do.
They need to have us, like, you know what I mean? People that are level-headed, level-minded, able to ask the questions that need to be asked. And, you know, people need to, you know, come with answers for all these questions, because if all of this was brought up before the judge, I'm pretty sure it will make the judge like reconsider or think a little bit more deeply into the situation.
That would be
Like,
But too, like you have to think about, like, and then I too, like y'all say, like voting is very, very, very important, because like I know, like when we vote for the judges, it's not the same as, do we vote for the judges the same time we vote for the president?
yeah.
Because I feel like sometimes those like little votes, like the judges, the Congress people, the council people, whatever, people don't really pay attention to those, and they don't really vote for those. And I feel like that's a problem too. Like we have to
It
like
is.
start educating people to
Yes.
vote for the right judges, because
Yeah.
they're the ones that, you know, are putting down these laws and stuff like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
That's true.
I think next year we have a chance to elect a new mayor. And we got to find, I thought Fisher was doing a good job until this all came out, and then he just completely
Yes.
screwed it up.
Yes.
He's just too much a capitalist white man
Yeah.
to see beyond himself in that respect.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we need to find somebody who can really, really be a mayor for all of Louisville and not
For
just
everybody.
east of 9th Street.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Well, dear
So I
heart,
think that's what's so heartbreaking about the mayor, because his presence in West Louisville was always there. He was always, you know, you look up and he's there. He's doing something. And it was all a facade. I mean, now for me personally, it's like,
Just
where
like
was his
shocked. I
heart?
was just like,
Yeah. I mean, it was mouth dropping. Like, no, not, you know, yeah. So it's heartening.
didn't meet this particular moment of challenge for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yes, voting, and don't give up on the protesting.
Yes.
Right.
I'm sorry that I'm 76-year-old and feel I'm too old to risk my own health going down and protesting, but I would be if I could be.
Well, I tell you, your contribution to
Yes.
this class, to this college,
Yes.
to this community
Yes.
is amazing. And
Yes.
I personally thank you. I mean, in your introduction,
Yes.
it was a proud moment for me, because I know that, you know, Pastor / President Cosby and so many other leaders have been working towards this for some years, with this educating, you know, everybody being educated on, because I think that's where the conversation starts. And reading the books and understanding the history, and then having compassion.
Yes.
So thank you.
Yeah.
Yes,
Well,
thank you.
I'm just an old white man in a black college, and there's only so much I can do, but I'm glad I can do this. It's good to
Yes.
be here.
If I
Go
could say
ahead, Dr.
quickly, my
Clay.
sister had a situation where she was just at a restaurant, and there was a young white couple, and they had 2 young children with them, and they were engaged in conversation, and the wife was like, you know, I really would love to get out there and protest. And my sister's like, well, you know, that maybe that's not for you. Just train your children to love.
mm-hmm.
And I thought that was so wonderful. She said, just train your babies to love.
Mm-hmm. That's
Yeah,
true.
you don't go out there. You got to take care of your kids, you know. But
Yeah.
so
You gotta
it's
do, right? That's good.
yeah.
All right, dear hearts, thank you. This has been a wonderful conversation. Thank you.
It has.
Thank you. Yes, it has.
Thank you.
Next
Thank
week,
you all.
we'll be preparing for the midterm exam, which I'll put up. I may have it by Friday. You can take it anytime you want to. We'll have, I'll do some video reviewing on Monday, and then we'll have class on Wednesday to do a review for you if you want to wait till then, or take it whenever. So that's what's coming up next week. It's in all the stuff we've dealt with and read and talked about since the beginning of the class.
Mhm.
The following week, we will take up, what did I say? I thought I knew what we were talking about. Anyway, I think it's black faith in America. So that'll be kind of fun. That'll be good.
Yes.
Thank you very
Black faith,
much
that's
for this great conversation. And keep on growing and learning and thinking and attending to what's going on in this world around us. That's very important
Yes.
as well. All right.
Yeah.
Have a good week.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank
Have a
you.
good week.
Y'all
Bye.
have a good one.
You too.
Mhm.